Hello, I'm going to go over section 22, section of faith and abuse. We're going to discuss just like the importance of faith for different people and just like how that could play a factor in the abuse that they're enduring or in as well as how it can be used as a strength. So, first things first, I have this video here for y'all to watch. It's over spirituality and again, just remember this is a disclosure of just like Project Hope does not endorse any or promote any religious views or political opinions. So spirituality can really mean many different things for different people. So in this video, like attempts to define spirituality by a panel of people who are like dedicated to the study of spirituality. So the purpose of it is to present how apparent spirituality is in our lives as human beings. It's not meant to define your definition of spirituality or change your opinion or anything like that. It's just ideas to stir our thinking as we think about this aspect of our lives and just in regards of our deeper selves. So yeah, I'm going to give you a moment to click on this video. It's going to be located in the description below. Pause this video, watch the video, and come back. Go for it now. Okay, so I hope that you had paused the video and had watched. You had paused this YouTube video and watched this other video about Oprah and her peeps. So yeah, we hope that this video really stir your thoughts on spirituality. Just think about like what do you think, like how can this be accessed for clients, and how can it be helpful to address this for clients, you know? So there's just a parallel there, as you can see, as what they were talking about, just like how it could really help someone in a hard time. But again, just like the importance of bringing this to clients. So it's very helpful to provide services in using a holistic approach. So holistic means, just using a comprehensive whole way of helping someone. So it uses the mind, body, and spirit. So yeah, the holistic approach can be very fundamental in their healing process. And as we saw in that video before, spirituality can be really part of our humanity and something, and it can be important to access as a source of strength. So that's why we're talking about spirituality. So then a lot of people ask, what about religion then? Like how is religion the same thing as spirituality? So in my research and the research that we have done to set this PowerPoint up is that there's a pretty good difference between the two. So spirituality, you really focus on the meaning of your life, or finding connection and just like how you're living. However, right, religion just really focuses on the practices, those rites, the rituals, and what you should follow. It's very certain, like what's right or wrong, what's true or false, just like trying to find something to be right about. And you can see how they're both intertwined by those central values of belief, comfort, reflection, ethics, and awe. This quote was pretty interesting, and it's like, I consider myself more spiritual than religious. Spirituality for those seeking understanding, religion is for those seeking reward. So yeah, like religion can be really, kind of a place where, how would you say it? Just like being, religion could be very, how to get, as they said, seeking reward. There you go. My thoughts are kind of scattered, but religion is, how to get to that place, going up, whether spirituality is kind of like this thing that comes from inside. But unfortunately, as we'll see later on, religion is this construct, that we've used just to get to that place of reward or being right. And that can be used to manipulate or abuse others, which is sad. So this is just viewing, religion as a power tool. About like religion is those rules, regulations, ceremonies, and rituals developed to create that conformity, uniformity. Again, there's that other concept of spirituality. It's just like that deeper sense Um, so yeah, just like take a moment right now to think about like what does it mean to have religion as a power tool, and we'll see examples later on of how it could really be used, and just think a little bit right now of like how can it be used. So unfortunately, there's just like this correlation between religion and violence. Um, religion can be really misused to excuse or condone an abusive behavior. Abusers can and have used faith as a weapon against their victim to exert control over them and justify their behaviors because you know what the Bible told me to, things like that. There are various religious texts that have been viewed as patriarchal interpretations, and they do create that justification for violence against women, unfortunately. So just seeing how that could be that correlation, which can be very dangerous, especially to um, religious folks. So um, that as we can see it, and you can see as well, just like religion and violence in the history of religion in general, as conversion and things like that, and just forcing religion on people. And as people have said, there's many quotes that religion has started many wars. It's a very, very passionate topic, I would say, for different peoples, and can be very controversial. And yeah, it could definitely fire up violence, things like that. So that's how it can definitely be used to hurt people and be used against other people. So this is just a Christian verse from the Christian Bible. It says, "Wives, be subject to your husbands as you are to the Lord." So either by its silence or its instruction, the church has too often communicated to battered women that they should stay in abusive relationships, try to be better wives, and forgive and forget. And to abusers or batterers, it can really communicate that their efforts to control their significant others can be justified because women are subject to men in all things, and they're permitted to discipline their wives and children for the good of the family. Unfortunately, so that's how those views get ingrained there. And I do not, since this is through video, I do have this power and control and equality wheel, and it's called the Power and Control Women in Patriarchal Society. So this is just using the different verses that have been used and abused to justify violence. Using intimidation, using emotional abuse, using isolation, minimizing, denying, and blaming, using children, using privilege, women as property, using threats or coercion. Here are different verses that have been used for that, and I do. So then, unfortunately, so these are the famous ones that have been used. I'm going to pull up right now and read one of the verses to see exactly what it says and see how it can be interpreted. So this is going to be Judges 19:22 to 29, that they've been used to justify the women as property. Alright. So while they are enjoying themselves, some of the wicked men of the city surrounded the house. Pounding on the door, they shouted to the old man who owned the house, "Bring out the man who came to your house so we can have sex with him." The owner of the house went outside and said to them, "No, my friends, don't be so vile. Since this man is my guest, don't do this outrageous thing. Look, here is my virgin daughter and his concubine. I'll bring them out to you now, and you can use them and do to them whatever you wish. But as for this man, don't do such an outrageous thing." But the man would not listen to him, so the man took his concubine and sent her outside to them, and they raped her and abused her throughout the night, and at dawn they let her go. At daybreak, the woman went back to the house where her master was staying, fell down at the door, and lay there until daylight. Wow, that was a very sad verse. I've never read that before until now. So, as you can see right there, he definitely just threw one of his girl slaves, right, concubines, out to those abusers, and they just used her and left her. So yeah, you can see different verses like that happen in the Bible. Of course, you don't have to get into it now, but just like different reasons of that's a different time and different culture. But what happens is people use that verse nowadays and can say, look, this justifies a woman that should be treated this way, when really it should not be used like that. So yes, these are different. So for example, using intimidation, 1 Peter 3:7, or using emotional abuse, Titus 2:3-5. Those are just different verses that have been used to justify using emotional abuse and using intimidation. So it's very interesting. And if you want to see this power and control wheel, you can always just check in with one of the advocates in the office and ask for it from the advocate training and look at it yourself if you would like to. So this is a article that has been found too, that just, you can see how they've been abusing that aspect of religion. So this is a article. This is an example of a man who writes on his interpretations in the Bible and just reviews biblical gender roles. The author publishes this article on sexual refusal and how a husband should confront her. So he's addressing the wife who consistently and routinely denies her husband sexually simply because she does not need sex as much, or thinks that she should not have to do it except when she's in the mood, or when she thinks her husband should have to earn sex with her by putting her in the mood, doing various things she expects or likes. So he denies the concept of marital rape and just like using the Bible to back this up. So this is the advice, that he's about to give to the Christian husband, and just thinking. And he also ties in sexual denial as the same ground as sexual immorality. So when asked, the people had asked him, like, is it the same as manipulating your wife for sex? And he just says, like, manipulation isn't the same as discipline. So yeah, these are just his steps on how to rebuke your wife. So rebuking her privately and stop taking her on dates, and then it just like escalates into unnecessary household upgrades, stop doing the little extra things, remove her funding, rebuke her before witnesses, and then last but not least, bring her before the church. So again, these are just his interpretation of the Christian Bible, and so he's trying to validate that murder or rape, isn't a thing, and just trying to validate that aspect that the man can control his wife, when really in a marriage it should be equal, right? So yeah, the articles like these can be very dangerous to faith-based people. And imagine a victim of domestic violence and something like this, and if they say, well, if the Bible says it, then it's okay, and then that means I have to stay here with them and stuff. So that's how it can be very negatively used against someone else, and it's very unfortunate, that's for sure. So yeah. Here's another example. This is from Islam. It's the most abused verse in the Ayah. I think I'm saying that right on, but 34 of the Surah 4. So men are the protectors and maintainers of women, because Allah gave them more to the one than the other, and because they support them from their means. Concerning women whose rebellious disloyalty you fear, admonish them, then refuse to share their beds, then hit them. But if they become obedient, do not seek maintenance of annoyance against them. So here is another example from a different religion, Islam, where again it's just that same concept of how men have to control the women, and they have used this wording right there, then hit them, to justify abuse against women, like physical abuse, and it really feeds into that idea of the patriarchal idea, or gender-based violence, and just the fact that men have more value than women, and that they are women's keepers. So yeah, you can really see how religion has played a big part of that, and how these verses of these sacred texts would be used to be proof for people who want to maintain that control. So they would use this because as sacred texts or religion can really be something to how would you say, sway the masses or teach the masses or to be able to give people hope in a sense. But with that comes a lot of power. Religion holds a lot of power. And so now we can see how it can be used against people in such severe ways, and unfortunately. So yeah, it really is a movement to change this faith narrative. We need to begin articulating a faith that will provide women with resources for strength rather than resources for endurance. We must articulate a theology of empowerment rather than a theology of passive endurance. So empowerment, women are worth it and the same, or have the same value, versus that passive endurance of, he takes care of everything, and he's the head of the household, so you just have to endure. You can't divorce. Divorce is bad, things like that. So yeah, it's up to us to really change this and how it could be changed. So finding the truth there. So verses can again be used out of context in many, many different ways. Not only in this aspect of violence against women, but in different aspects as well. But it does not tell the whole story. So these are just two examples of looking at it on the other side. So Jesus' ministry shares that he came so that people could have life and have it abundantly. So victimization was never God's will, but rather the fullness of life was his will. He tells the story of the persistent widow who goes to the unjust judge to be vindicated for some unnamed offense against her, and the judge vindicates her after her perseverance. Her strength and persistence result in her receiving justice she deserved. So that was just one example that I had found in this article. So again, a lot of this, as you can see from the bottom, it's violence against women and the role of religion. It is a production and dissemination of a publication that was supported by the cooperative agreement number of the Violence Against Women. It's the national online resource for violence against women. So they have just done a lot of research and was able to tie this in of religion and the violence and that correlation. So this is their example, as they see that God celebrated people and God celebrated women. In Islam, the Quran points out that marital relationship is mandated to be one of mutual kindness and mercy. So there's no human being has ultimate authority over women. Islam actually requires kindness, politeness, consideration, gentleness, and respect and general goodness to women. There's another example of just the other side of it, that there is good. And so again, back to that power and control wheel that I talked about earlier. So again, you can find it in the office if you would like, but if you turn it back around, there's one on the other side of the other wheel. Says women created in God's image as equal to men. So here it has a lot more different verses that could be used to identify those different things. So the negotiating with and being fair to women, being kind, moved by women, respecting women, supporting women, being honest and recognizing women's strength, treating women as responsible partners and parents, women as leaders, feminine imagery describing God and Jesus. There's again feminine imagery there, just because a lot of times God has been viewed as just masculine, and so that was given more justification that masculinity was better than femininity. But really, there's different verses here listed that would just beg to differ and would say that women, or that God has both characters. There's no one that's better than the other one. Everybody, or he has both aspects. So again, I'm pulling up one more verse. I'm going to go ahead and do that one. Deuteronomy 32:18. That's just talking about feminine imagery. It's, you deserted the rock who fathered you. You forgot the God who gave you birth. So then that's where they find the femininity aspect of just God giving birth, the other side. But yeah. And the cool thing though is that when you look at this wheel, the wheel that has women created in God's image, there's a lot more verses. That point to just the positivity towards women, versus the other side where it talks about being able to control women. The verses, not as many verses, But yeah, it's very interesting to be able to compare the two and find that truth there too that people could use. I unfortunately do not have the many quotes from the Quran, but that as well can be something interesting to look into. So these were the main two that was just much easier to be able to find examples from. Of course, there's many other religions, and you can find different aspects of that and what it means to be a woman in those different religions. So this is the faith response wheel. So how does Project Hope work with churches in the community? So this is a survivor to survivor domestic violence in the church. Again, I'm going to give you time right now to watch this video. It's like 8 minutes in the description below. You just have to watch this video and then come back and we will go over this wheel. And yeah, please enjoy, and I shall give you time right now to pause this video and watch this other video. Okay, welcome back. Thanks for watching the video. It just shows, the video really clearly presents just like testimonies, right, of people of how they either been hurt or really found that strength in the religious community. So this faith leaders are uniquely placed, right, in these places, these spaces, to reach out to victims and like help direct them to services and safety. So starting right in like our own congregations and different like that, people can, this organization can transform faith from a weapon to a resource and support for victims with knowledge and compassion. So here are the different things that, different steps that really helped a religious community to respond to domestic violence or sexual assault. So, they should develop protocols to help victims, having that action plan in place to be able to help. If someone comes up to the pastor and says, this is what's going on, they should be able to have that protocol. Create that safe haven. Again, congregations could be a safe place or could not be. It could be a very scary place because maybe the abuser has many friends in there and then they will lose their community. They will be viewed as less than, they'll be viewed as a sinner, or they're doing something wrong and divorce is bad, just things like that. So the religious community, that congregation should really make it known that it's a safe haven for everybody. Teaching through life cycle events. So you may have contact with families around life cycle events. Being aware, just being aware of how those different events can really affect domestic violence. Educating your community, of course, sponsor educational programs on domestic violence, and working with, and again, this is the perspective of the church, so that they could work with other communities just such as us, working as a team and getting that training. So getting trained on their staff members or whoever works within that congregation to be able to be trained and be able to identify signs of domestic violence or sexual assault and know who to contact and what to do after that. Use a prophetic voice is just like giving sermons of domestic violence. I guess teaching that family violence is not acceptable. Again, reframing and putting truth back into what religion could really have taken that away from. So that's another, again, as I said, like faith leaders are uniquely placed in that position that they could be able to use that voice and be able to better educate the people of the congregation and be able to teach and again, like as we said before, to really articulate a faith that will provide women with resources of strength rather than resources of endurance. So again, this is the viewpoint of the church with organizations, and there's actually an organization called Hearts and Hands, piercing together faith and safety for rural victims of sexual and domestic violence. And it's a rural assistant project, and they have come by and give a little bit of a training with Project Hope. And again, you can go to the office and ask for like this little booklet handout, and they have different flyers in there that are good examples for a congregation to set up. So they're trying to really bridge that gap, have us work with congregations and faith-based communities in order to, again, bridge that gap, in order to be able to be like, this is what we do, these are our services, and then reaching out to churches and letting them know that we exist and know how to help victims. So that is a awesome organization and stuff, and there's still in the early steps. I'm not too sure exactly how, if they're going to continue doing any trainings, but for example, as a bilingual advocate and working with immigrants, the church is very important to them, and so I had met one of the pastors, and gave him my card, and just so he knows, he made contact and just knows that I'm here and exist, and we actually have had referral. We had a referral from him at one point because he knew of our services and knew that, well, this person, what they're going through is domestic violence. So it's very important to keep that door open and let them know that we are there, and to work with the churches and stuff, and to be able, because that's how you're able to change the faith narrative in the end. So that's how the religious community can be a source of strength. As you saw in that video, it provided community, it provided safe haven to some folks, and that's what we strive to do. And that does work with that relationship with the shelter or the organization in town with those churches, and to be able to collaboratively provide that approach to victims and work with each other. And if faith is very important to a client, then looking into churches around the area to help them get plugged in, because that can be a huge source of strength. And speaking of strength, here's just a quote. It says that my faith is strong. Islam tells me that on the day of judgment, his good deeds will come to me, that I will be compensated for the hell of this life that he has put me through, and that his hands will bear witness to his actions, even if his tongue refuses to acknowledge them. Islam tells me the act of sex between a husband and wife is a blessed event when done by mutual consent and love. Islam tells me if I witness a wrong, I must act in the interests of justice. So then this is a testimony of a victim of sexual abuse. She was sexually assaulted multiple times, like raped, by a director of a charity. So she suffered a lot, and just right now she's reflecting on her personal religion and tradition and how that was able to give her strength and empower her, as you can see here. Again, it can be super, super important. It can be vital to someone who is struggling, and if that is something that they need, helping them find that. Again, this is the same quote from earlier, that victimization was never God's will, but rather fullness of life. So we can see this as, we saw how faith can be detrimental. Not faith exactly can, but how religion can be detrimental, how it can be used as a power tool, how it can really be damaging, how it really can influence people and victims to stay in the relationship, thinking that, being afraid of how it will look, and being afraid of guilt, or guilt that just drives them, or just believing the fact that that's how it's supposed to be. So, but here on the other side, at the end of this, we can see how faith can be an immense source of strength. It can really help somebody who's going through a really tough time. And again, as we talked in the beginning, spirituality is part of being a human. There's a search for meaning and a search for love, as every one of us as humans will need and want. So it'd be very important to see, however, it may not even be going to a church, but however way that person can be filled spiritually, such as it could be therapy, it could be support group, things like that, helping them find whatever they need. And what does it mean when you work with clients? So faith is a big part of their lives, making sure to incorporate the search for resources. If they need that church, help them find them. It can be a huge source of support. And again, it's only us, and organizations like us and people like us who just know know that there's more truth behind what those verses can say, can work together so that religion can be a resource rather than that roadblock. Many people will try to use it against you, but you knowing the truth and educating others can really be that first step to converting religion to a resource. But yeah, we need to work to change that narrative so that religion can no longer be used to abuse. So there may be times when clients will ask you, do you believe in God? Or maybe ask about your personal beliefs or in some sort of way. And I found that it all depends on your rapport building and their working relationship for you to decide whether to disclose. So this is a bilingual advocate testimony, me personally. So I work with the Hispanic community, and faith in that community is very important. So in my experiences with my immigrant clients, I disclose my faith more often than my non-immigrant clients, just because it's so much more important to me. However, it is different for everybody. For example, I can really relate to the immigrant population in faith, but if you do not believe in a certain denomination or agree with that client, don't lie and say that you do to please the client. And of course, and there's always a huge no-no to telling them that you do not believe them, because that, as well as they're letting them know, because you don't want to lie and say, oh yeah, I do, as well as you don't want to be like, no, I actually despise all that, because it could really just affect the rapport building process. But your decision to disclose should always be about building rapport and creating space for relatable trust. So never to change someone's mind or to convince them otherwise. You're not a big crusader. You're not trying to get them onto your ship, get them to knowing what you need, or get them agreed to what you think is right, or things like that. That is not ever a reason to disclose your faith. So again, it should always be up to you in a different way of, is always depending on the situation, because you will get questions like that where people might ask, why did God let this happen to me? And it's okay to be like, I am not sure and I do not know how to answer that. But just know that it wasn't your fault. Just reiterating how it wasn't their fault and things like that. But yeah, faith can be very important to a person. If the person doesn't have any faith either, someone has faith in something. They may have faith in their family, in their job, and in themselves, and just trying to find faith back in themselves, things like that. So helping them connect, helping them be able to fill that void in the way that they would like to. So again, that's how we can work to change the narrative and together, and be able to really view spirituality as something powerful and helpful, rather than something that could be used to hurt people. So yeah, that's just the intersection of faith and abuse. A lot of different things of how we saw how it could be used as a power tool, but yeah, at the same time be used as a strength tool. So if you have any questions, just ask one of the victims. Ask one of the advocates in the office or anything like that. Thank you for listening. Here we have another cute thing, cartoon thing, for your enjoyment. But yes, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great day. And yeah, thank you, and we're done.